Hello, and thank you for joining us on another Thursday evening. This is Sunlight Radio Online. My name is Apron, and we are so glad and very grateful to have you join us again. We hope that the past week was very good. You were able to spend some quality time with your friends and family, and you were able to also apply some of the resources that we provide on this show on a weekly basis. And we are also hoping that you are ready to learn some more with us today. So it's that time to reach out to friends and family, let them know, our show is starting, and it's on www.sunlightradioonline.com. So if you can dial to that channel and get ready to be part of our show today. We also like you to know that this entire show is being archived. We do archive all our resources on our website, which is www.enjoylifewithyourspouse.com. Thank you again, and we will be right back. Hello, thank you for joining us on another edition on our Couple Faith Night. This is our show, a Thursday evening show, where we talk about issues pertaining to love, marriage, and relationships. My name is Akwesi Apong, and here is another edition of our show. We are very grateful to have you. Today, we want to dive into something quite interesting. And before I get into that, I want you to think about this question, that since you got married, from the day you got married or the day you found that special someone who maybe you're planning on getting married, has your relationship been stable? Has it been consistent? Have you always had the same level of affection and connection with your spouse? I know the answers to this might vary, but today what we want to talk about is complacency in marriage. Complacency in marriage. When I say complacency in marriage, what am I talking about? What I want to dive into today is to understand what causes complacency. And before I get into this, I want to maybe provide some definitions, as every good presenter will do. And as I'm presenting, I want to make sure that I follow the same rules. So complacency is when any individual gets to a point or in a process where they become very familiar with the process, and their level of enthusiasm and excitement diminishes over time. So they are not so much excited about whatever process they were involved in. They don't look forward to it, or it becomes very routine. And I think it's something that naturally happens to us as human beings. So as you all know, things that happen naturally to us as human beings, we have to make sure we have a mechanism for dealing with it, or we have an approach or some tools and resources to address it before it happens. Let me give you an example. Gravity is something that happens naturally. When you throw something up, it comes down. So if you want a plane to fly, or you want to defy gravity, you have to have a system in place. You have to have some processes or some scientific or engineering approaches to deal with it. If not, you will not be able to achieve that goal of defying gravity. We do this in so many ways. We as human beings, even as we grow up, we do things we grow up naturally. Naturally, everybody will grow up, will get into our middle age, will get old. But we do things to bring out our youthfulness. And it's the same way, the same thought process I want you to have as we talk about this tonight. That if we do nothing, complacency will set in. If we fail to act, if we fail to put in effort, complacency is going to set in. And I want to use another analogy as we go along talking about complacency today. And this is an analogy my pastor made about a week ago at church, which I really did like. He asked the question, are you wearing a bib or an apron? And I sat for a moment and said, yeah, isn't that interesting? So what does it mean to wear a bib or an apron? If we wear a bib in our relationships, it means that we're being complacent. Now, what is a bib? A bib, I'm talking about a bib, B-I-B, a bib, what kids wear when you're eating. And what is a bib? A bib is designed to, hang around the neck of a child when he or she is eating. And the benefit of bibs are to prevent the food splattering from their mouth, not to come into contact with their skin or maybe whatever clothes they are wearing underneath. Now, what is an apron? An apron is also a piece of garment that also hangs around your neck and is tied at the back. And the purpose of that is to wear it so that whilst you're cooking or whilst you're working, you won't have splatters of food or paint or whatever you're working with on your clothes. And I have to make it clear here, it's not only cooking that is required, aprons are required. Painters wear aprons, carpenters sometimes wear a leather apron, so that if a nail or a projectile shoots, it won't hit them anywhere in their torso, on the middle part of their body, to keep them safe. So as you see, aprons have more benefits. One interesting thing about both the bib and the apron is that they are all worn in front. They both hang somewhere around your neck, and they both tie somewhere at the back. So why does two things with so much similarity have different implications based on who is wearing them? And I want us to think about this as we go through this today. That think of what a bib is. A bib is worn by a child. A bib is worn by somebody who is inexperienced because they need help eating or maybe processing food in a way. So when a child wears a bib, it means that it's time for the child to eat, or maybe to color. Sometimes kids, when they're coloring, parents put some kind of paper bibs around their neck to help them to make sure that they are not going to soil their clothes. So when it comes to an apron, anyone who puts on an apron means that they are an adult, they are matured, and they're doing some kind of work that requires them to put in some kind of effort. There's going to be splatters, there's going to be things flying around, or oil and smoke and dust and all of that going on. So the question I asked myself when I heard my pastor say this is, in marriage, are you wearing a bib or are you wearing an apron? And depending on what you're wearing will determine if you're complacent or you're being very proactive in your relationship. So in talking about complacency, I want you to think about the analogy between a bib and an apron. They're both made of fabric, and again, I've pointed out that Some bibs could be made of paper depending on the application, and some aprons could be made of leather depending on the application. But then both of them serve, they look similar, but they serve a different role. And the reason why they serve different roles is based on who is wearing them and why they're wearing them. So in a relationship, if you are in a relationship where you always expect to be fed, to be received, you always want to be on the receiving end, it means that you are wearing a bib in that relationship. And most too often, that means that it's putting a lot of toll on the one who's administering the food or serving or helping in one way or the other. It's very important that we become aware of this and know that when it comes to our relationships, we all have to find where our aprons are and tie them around our neck, fasten them at our backs, roll up our sleeves, and get ready to put in the effort we need to defeat any form of complacency that can begin to take root in our relationship. Because complacency is one of those I guess emotions, or one of those evils that sneak in quietly, and over time one person starts taking the other for granted. There's lack of respect, there's lack of love, and it rolls into other things like contempt. It rolls into other things like bitterness and anger, and it leads the relationship to places where they are not supposed to go. So my question for you tonight that I want you to think about is, what are you wearing? What are you wearing in your relationship? Is it a bib or is it an apron? Are you rolling up your hands to work? Are you sitting to just receive? What posture are you in your relationship? And depending on your posture will determine what you get out of your relationship. So we're going to look at complacency and how that can impact our relationships, and how we can move from wearing a bib to wearing an apron. If you've been married for a while, or if you've been with your partner for some time, there's a good chance that one or both of you are becoming complacent in a relationship. And when not addressed, it's an issue that can lead to other problems. I said earlier that it's one of those things where it's almost inevitable that human beings, even when you get a new job, you're very excited, you look forward to going in. The first week passes, the second week, goes into months, and it gets to a point going to work feels very hard, because that passion wears off. What's important is, what are you doing as an individual to make sure that you're still very passionate about what you do? And the way you do it is maybe approaching your projects differently, or asking for more responsibility so you can rise up the ladder in your company and make more money in that process. All of these things will help you achieve that goal of preventing boredom or complacency. In the same way, when it comes to our relationship, we have to know that complacency naturally happens when couples get too busy with their daily lives, and the quality of time together gets diminished. And it's so diminished that it's just stuck somewhere between our busyness of work and dealing with kids and bills and relatives and all our social responsibilities. Dr. Kate Dow, a psychologist and relationship coach, made a statement that we get comfortable with our partner and feel we don't need to make the effort. But in order to keep things happy and healthy, an effort is certainly needed to make it happen. So this says it all. As time goes on, we get so comfortable. Especially when we feel we're being fed. Look at babies. Babies feel so comfortable sitting in that high seat with a bib around their neck, and the food just comes. Sometimes we even fly the food on the spoon, and they're so excited and so comfortable enjoying it. Children have no care where the food is coming from. As long as it's here, I want to eat it, But as we grow up, we have to trade that baby in for an apron, because it's time for us to also get ready to put an effort in and to work very hard. My name is Apron. This is Sunlight Radio Online, and today we are talking about complacency in marriage. And as I said earlier, reach out to your friends and family and let them tune in. Our website is www.sunlightradioonline.com, and we are going through the steps in defining what complacency is and how to become aware of it to ensure that it's not going to trap your relationship. We will be right back. Hello again, and thank you for joining us today on another edition of Couples Date Night, where we provide resources to help couples think through tools they need to make their relationships better. And as I said earlier, today we are looking at a very important topic, and it's complacency in marriage. And we started by talking about the posture or our attitude towards relationship, and we made the analogy by saying, are you wearing a bib or an apron? Based on what you're wearing determines how well you're investing time and effort into your relationship. So as we move on along today, how do you avoid complacency? That complacency, as we defined it, is something that happens naturally as we get busy in life. The most important things and the things that are not crying for attention tends to fall to the bottom. And usually we are trapped with, children, and, well, I would say trapped with our children, but we allow that to happen because we don't set our priorities right. Our children are a blessing, and I want to emphasize that. I think I spoke some time ago about how to let your children help with your marriage, and maybe we can do another show on that and get into the details of that. So what are the things that you can do to ensure that you avoid complacency? Or in other words, what can you do if you're wearing a bib, and how you can trade in for an apron? The first thing is learn to have deep communication. When it comes to relationships and marriage, communication is key. How much a couple communicates, they talk, and it's about, and I mean everything. They talk about the fun things, they talk about the not so fun things, how they talk about things about, their children or their expectations and things they want to see and how they want to develop their relationship. The level of which couples talk really helps them to bond. It helps them to know where each other is in their relationship, and it also helps them to really grow as they develop their marriage. So it's very important that couples learn to have very deep conversations. And when I say deep conversations, it's not about how's your day? Fine. How was your day? It was good. That is not a deep conversation. We have to communicate deeply. And communicating deeply means that it's, a communication that's often sparked by, interest and passion and excitement, and the other side of it too could be even some kind of friendly arguments about topics, where you take one side, your spouse take the other side, and you both bring your views. Those of you who went to boarding school in Ghana remember when we had debates where people pick various opposing side of a topic, and you bring your facts to debate. It's just like political parties do, presidential candidates do. So engaging in things like that really helps us to bond. It helps us to know where your spouse is, what their views are, what their belief system as it evolves through your marriage. So we have to make it a point to make sure that we're having deep communication. That is the first thing we can do to avoid complacency. The next thing is very simple: gratitude. How well do you show gratitude in your relationship? When I made the analogy earlier about when you get a job and you enjoy the job so much, and as time goes on, we forget when we didn't have a job and we're ready to do anything to get a paycheck. Any money that we could get by doing anything, we were ready to do it. But as time goes on, you have a job, money's coming in, that reality, it's no longer in your vision, and we tend to think of all the things that we don't like about the job. And ironically, we bring the same attitude to our relationships too. Remember when you were single and you had your own apartment and you were so lonely, and you wished and prayed for the day where you meet somebody, fall in love, get married, have some children, and now you have all of that, and you have almost seemed to have lost all your gratitude for where you are. It's very important that we continue to remind ourselves of all the things that are going well. I've often said on the show that gratitude, I have to put this well again, says that how much we show gratitude, I can't recall the phrase, but it will come later. But in any way, this is how it goes. When we appreciates, that's the way it goes. So when we appreciate our relationship, if we appreciate our spouses, it appreciates, meaning that we get more opportunities to show gratitude and thankfulness. So let us make sure that we are showing gratitude. We appreciate what is going on in our relationship. When your spouse does something, stop and say thank you. I appreciate what you do for us, how you take care of our home, how you work hard. I appreciate who you are. It helps so much in so many ways to prevent complacency in relationships. So as we move along, what goals do you have for your relationship? That's one way to avoid complacency. Create goals for your relationship. What plans do you have as a couple? At the beginning of the year, I know we all have resolutions we make as to goals we want to achieve. But do you have specific goals for your relationship, for your marriage? If you're planning on getting married, what goals do you have? What plans do you have? There's a show on TV I saw that I haven't sat to watch an entire version, but it's something about young couples getting married, and they're supposed to choose between having a big wedding or using that money to buy a house. And it goes through this whole process where they look at houses, and they have an amount of money that's been given to them or they've saved, and they have to decide how they want to use that. That is setting goals. What are the goals? Where do you want to see your relationship, and what are you doing? What steps are you taking to get there? And if you're already married, where do you want to see your relationship in the next year? What are some of the things you plan on doing in your relationship? As a couple, choosing a day, to free up your schedule and focus fully on the vision of your relationship offers you the opportunity to spend quality time and also to create a unified vision with your significant other. It's important because this might include planning your vacation, looking at your schedules to make sure that both of you are not, flying in different directions, or simply creating some goals that, we want to be a family that spends time together, or want to be a family that helps people. What goals do you have? If we have goals it helps to prevent complacency, because we have something we're working towards, we have something that we are both contributing to develop our relationship. So we have to have goals. Don't just get married and just leave it to go. It's almost like starting an engine, putting it on drive, letting the car move, and setting your cruise control with no direction. We need goals to help us to achieve them and also to prevent complacency. Now, I like this next one. Celebrate your individuality. Most too often, a lot of people say, I can't wait to be with my spouse and we're looking forward to getting married. It's great. That's what I talk about all the time. That, connecting as couples is great. Making time for each other is wonderful. That's where we want you to spend the bulk of our time. But the Bible talks about when it comes to intimacy, we being intimate, but taking time off for prayer and other things that pertain to us, and then coming back together. And whilst that is not a direct reference for what I'm trying to communicate, the point I'm trying to make here is that it's important for you to spend time with yourself as an individual, because great couples are made of two great people. And as you improve yourself as an individual, as you spend time with yourself to rest and recharge, and sometimes spending time with yourself means going out by yourself to explore and to meet friends and to catch up with friends and to do things that really build you up. It's so important that when we do these things, I often say that there's an article I read in the Time magazine on the science of marriage, and it talks about how when you go out as an individual to spend time with yourself, or you go for events, or you connect with other people, you bring stories to your marriage. You come home and you have so much to talk about. You tell your husband, guess who I met? You won't believe what happened today. And for the next 24 to 48 hours, you have so much to talk about, because you're learning to celebrate yourself as an individual. And that is very, very important. So as we move on, what are some of the other things we can do to help us avoid complacency? Another one is you have to learn to change up your daily routine. Do things a little different. We get stuck in that same old routine, and we could even, sleep and find ourselves at our jobs and work and come home, and, everything seems to be on cruise control. And our day-to-day lives are the same. We eat the same food, we watch the same channels, and it gets very, very boring after a while. And that also sometimes contributes to complacency. Even the way you relate to your spouse, is it still the same? Do you say the same words? Are you changing your vocabulary and finding some nice, smooth words to say to your wife? We have to evolve when it comes to how we do things in our relationship. That is going to help us to break that rhythm of complacency, because then we've realized there are things that are exciting about our relationship that we are not paying attention to, or there are areas in our relationship that we have to put in effort to make sure we are fully enjoying and we're fully engaged. So what are some of the things you can do to change? While it's always nice to fall into a comfortable routine in your relationship, there is such a thing as being too comfortable, and some of us just get too comfortable, so we pretend that to prevent that from happening, we have to learn to incorporate some small changes in our day. Get up a few minutes early and do yoga, or do your quiet time together as a couple, go for a walk in the morning, pick up a new hobby, there's something you can do. And last week on our podcast, I told you I've picked up gardening, and this spring and summer, I'm planting some tomatoes and flowers in our yard, and it's giving me something else to do, and I'm really looking forward to it. In the fall, I'm going to have a big harvest, and my farming instincts are coming out, and it's very, very exciting. So think of things that you can do, that will help you break the routine, plan and meet up Saturday morning. When you get up, don't jump into cleaning the house and doing the laundry and all of that. Why don't you go for a walk and go out with your spouse to grab breakfast and sit somewhere and have some chat, break up the routine, do something different. I've often talked about the miracle of doing new things or going to new places. It always helps to refresh your relationship, and that has the ability to prevent this routine, boredom routine, and also prevent any form of complacency in your relationship. My name is Kwesi Opong. This is Sunlight Radio Online, and we are talking today about complacency in marriage. We hope you're enjoying it. As I've often said, if you're interested in contributing to our relationship, you can always join us by